upcoming school board. Let's start by pledging pledging allegiance to virtual flag.
There we go. Okay. All right.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda is next.
I move we approve the agenda.
And I'll second.
All in favor? Two would be
All in
good.
favor? 2-0-2. Public comments.
No public.
No public is here. They missed the opportunity. Promising Student Plan, PSP.
Sir. So, in the last academic committee meeting that Dr. Campbell and I were in, I guess that was back in May, or June, when we got the approval of the administrative regulation, the board approved that in June. So with that, the next step, once we got approval from the board for the admin rule, was to submit a plan for our Promising Student Alternative program. Prior to this, we did not have PSP listed as a program with the State Department. When Dr. Campbell had them come down in April, we found out that we needed to have them listed as a program. And with us adding an additional site, we wanted to make sure that we did everything correct on the front end. So what we have done is, you received a draft document initially. We took your input, updated the document, made some changes that we as a committee felt would be appropriate for the document, and have it here for you to review. So you tell us how you want us to do this. Last time we went through the edits that you shared with us, but I think it's important that we go through the document because we have made some additional changes to the document. We've updated the mission, the vision.
Okay,
So-
great. Why don't we
Just go
go
through the document?
Through the document.
Okay, and we just go section by section and you let us know if you need clarification or have any
Yes.
questions. Does that work?
Yeah, since we've first seen it for the first time now,
Yes.
so.
Okay, and I'm gonna email it to Ms. Fiddles
Okay.
while y'all start.
Yep. So the vision and the mission, they changed order here on this one. Is that, I mean, that's insignificant, I guess.
We
But
got some advice from Ms. Gilbert, the Director of Career and Tech Aid, because we wanted to have some additional eyes put on this before we brought it to you. And what she suggested was to us was that the vision kind of sets the overarching
Right.
goal
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
program,
Yeah.
and then the mission falls
Okay,
under that. So
that's-
that's the reason for that change.
Okay.
And I think that you'll find that it's more closely aligned to the purpose of the Promising Student Program. So do we have any questions or any conversation about the program overview? Okay, so statement of need.
I do want to comment on under the goals and objectives. I think one of the pieces of feedback mentioned that maybe taking that first statement and embedding it in the goals, but that's the way
That's the template from the state.
template was set up.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Well, and so you have added will provide,
Yes.
because
yeah.
when I was reading it, you know, even, and I went back and I said, I see why they did that, because it's
Uh-huh.
providing, but it just read, poorly. It just
Okay,
read,
yes.
so, okay.
So have any questions about the statement of need or any conversation we need to have about that? Okay.
Yeah, I
Make sure you go through each section.
Sure.
decided how many locations we're gonna have it at or have it decided?
We have decided, it's in the overview, so the 3 locations are Coosa Elementary School,
Yeah, I
Cooperville.
saw that.
But this actually came from the administrative regulation, so that particular statement is in the administrative reg that the board approved. So we took that directly from that document.
Go on board. Good. So back to the.
And I just want to add, I know it seems like there's a little bit of redundancy in the paragraphs, repeating the grades 2 through 5, but the way that the document is set up, we have to add each area, so we wanted to make sure that we answer the question for each specific area.
Okay, I had a question about under a description of the target audience. My question was that or, the PSCP serves students enrolled in grades 2 through 5 who exhibit chronic disruptive behaviors and or social emotional concerns. So, is it the
Are you
students?
saying
See,
who are?
I suggested the word and because we're talking about the students and they are in grades 2 to 5. But talking, you know, they exhibit chronic disruptive behaviors or social emotional concerns and are unsuccessful. Because they could be, but, you know, instead of that are, then that are is, yeah.
It's still a draft document, so we can
Okay.
definitely make that change.
Okay. This is the teacher in me. The measurable objectives, 100% of the students will be taught. Okay. I mean, our objective, we could say we're going to teach things, but should the objective be that they're going to
Be instructed.
acquire? No, I mean, my question is, an objective of teaching is really kind of a
So you
cop-out.
want to see them use
We
those
want to
coping
see-
skills and
Yeah,
de-escalation
how are we
skills?
gonna measure that
Where
they've
you want to
learned
go,
those
yeah.
coping skills? You know, we're gonna, it's just like, just because we teach something doesn't mean it's been learned. And the measure of us as teachers is not that we stood up to me and taught it, it's that
Right.
our students
That
learned
access.
it. So that's
That makes
my,
sense.
you know, for it to be measurable, I mean, and so we could check off the box and say, okay, we taught a social skills class, but to me, that's,
Would you recommend that we add something like, will be instructed and then as measured by,
So the
progress
document-
monitor,
the progress
the monitoring
monitoring.
or progress monitoring, as we call it, progress monitoring and enrich? Would
Yeah,
that make it a
yes.
little more specific?
I think so, because we can progress monitor specific behaviors in
Yes.
Enrich, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So we've got, we'll be collecting data on, you know, the student's behavior, and I would feel much better about that too, because to me, this is, if I was at the State Department, I'd say that's not good enough. So,
So change that verb from taught to instructed, and then put something about how, as measured by. Progress monitoring, documentation, enrich.
So we want to make sure that that sentence flows correctly.
Yeah.
well,
So,
let's see.
all right, 100% of students placed in the PSP program will be, what are we saying, instructed? Will utilize the, and I don't know.
We don't know if
then
100%
and we don't
will utilize.
exactly.
Right.
So that's the part there that makes that a little bit,
So I'm thinking if you say will be instructed, using
What if we, are we gonna have a baseline of behaviors
That's what I was
that we think?
thinking.
So what if we say that will 100% of the
Right, will
students
improve.
will improve?
Exactly. So, yeah, I was
something like
thinking
that.
So then we're changing this, because what we're doing is identifying here in this, the way that this is written now, but we would have to change that to say 100% of students. And maybe we can change the goal to include where they are, so.
We're gonna provide a highly structured subset
Mhm.
where
So where it says they can acquire social skills, that we can change to they can acquire coping and calming, all of those things as strategies.
you could have two under measurable objectives. You could have, just make that a separate measurable objective. You could have one measurable objective, okay, we are going to provide social skills training, 100% of the students. And then another measurable objective is 100% of the students will show a progress, you know, type
So I think
thing.
we would have to do, I don't think it will allow us to add two measurable
Oh.
objectives, the way that they have this template set
Okay,
up. So that's, and when that's the confines we have to work within, so.
All right.
But what we could do is add an additional goal.
And then that gives you the
Mhm.
measurable part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we could add an additional goal that focuses on the progress monitoring, what the data shows with regards to behavior. So the deduction or reduction of
You can't
behavioral
write that in,
incidents.
one, that's my thought process about goal one, that you need to write something in.
You know what,
that
it's,
Specify some form of how you're gonna measure it.
right.
Mhm.
And it's not measurable unless I can look at it and say, yesterday it was this way and today it's different. And how can you do that? You know, I guess with the tools you can do that, but it probably relates to the decrease in certain, you know, behavioral patterns, yeah. So, and is there a way that you can include that in what you're writing?
And if we go back to goal number one, it says can acquire. I would change that to will acquire, but can, so they will acquire acceptable social skills. So then, what we're measuring is the acquisition of those social skills. So we don't have to say that they're gonna be instructed, because what we wanna measure is, did they acquire those social skills?
How,
And how that measurement will be done.
how will you measure
Yeah.
the social skill, the acquisition of the
Of the
social
social
skill?
skills.
Right.
Because I think what Robine's saying is, in terms of the measurable objective, it's the outcome of the strategies that we're implementing to determine whether we're being effective with it or not.
Right.
And when we
So
set
I'm not sure how would we measure.
So could you give each kid that enters in like a pre-assessment on coping skills, collected information, and at the end of the 6 to 8, or however they're assigned, you give it to them again because you
I
taught
think we would
lessons.
probably have to do some research to find.
An instrument.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
instrument, but I'm just saying something like that, a pre and a post.
Because I don't know if we have that. right
Yeah, I
now,
don't
right?
know.
No.
Yeah, and that, and the,
Well,
So I know when we enter goals for interventions in Enrich, as far as our documentation, we have to, we establish the goal and the strategies that we need to work on in a specific way we're going to measure it. So it could be numeric, it could be, whatever. But you start with the baseline.
Right.
So whatever that baseline may be, and then you determine, it's like in Leader from X to Y by when, is what they.
Can you just change the words will be taught and take out the be taught and say will gain
Okay.
coping and calming strategies? And then now you can measure that, have they gained or not gained.
That's
Yeah,
very
that's
After
measured
period
by the
of time,
progress
for
monitoring.
documentation.
Thank you.
yes.
That makes sense, thank you.
I'm not an English
You're a math
wordsmith,
teacher.
so that's the whole math teacher, so.
And you could put, you know, as measured by enriched or, you
Yes.
know, something like
I
that.
hate to tell what it means.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As, you know, measured by
Progress
individual,
monitoring.
as measured by individual goals on enrich, because every child that's gonna be going here, I would assume is gonna have some individual behavior goals.
Absolutely.
Because that's the reason they're going there, right?
Right.
And we're gonna enter those in enrich, so, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Okay.
Else we never gonna
So-
send them back.
Right.
So if we do something like 100% of students placed in PSP will gain
It's not a life
coping and
sentence.
calming strategies, de-escalation skills.
It's not a
and
life sentence.
And blah, 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 as measured by individual goals in enrich.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We go to all.
Does that look okay, Cal?
I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I guess, consider for wraparound services through, does considered mean we're going to, how would I describe this in my experience? When we're taking every child that comes through and their family, and we're going through the, checklist of behaviors, of support needed. You know, there's
So not
usually,
necessarily a
there's usually
checklist, but
for
looking at
wraparound.
individual
Should
families
they,
and
like,
determining what their
evaluated
situation.
for,
Well,
or?
what I was gonna say is that each family is, we sit down with the family and determine what their situation is. And we
Right.
look at each situation individually to determine what the appropriate services are. So you can't just throw every single
That's
service at
right.
every family or the same services at every family
Mm-hmm.
and expect the same outcome.
Exactly, and I kind of like the word evaluating, well,
I don't know if evaluators is,
Yeah.
okay, well, it's considered, okay, if the
Well-
state takes it, to me, considered just kind of
It's
sounds
kind of vague.
too vague.
so what about?
And we have a process, what you've said is we have a
Yes,
process.
we do have a
Yeah.
process, but
And how can we
maybe,
articulate that process?
What about refer based on individual needs
okay.
instead of consider?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yes,
I'd
that's-
like,
that's
yes.
better.
Yeah, there
yes,
we go.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Because the word evaluating might have a different
Right.
connotation.
yes,
Exactly.
yes, yeah,
That's
okay, yeah.
competition.
That's the part I
Okay,
didn't want to.
yeah, got it, okay. Um, 100% of student place will be, well, they're not all gonna be referred for wraparound services because they won't all qualify, right?
Well,
Correct.
I think the way I read this is that the youth services serving agency will determine if they qualify. Is that right?
That's
It-
usually
yes.
how it is, yeah.
And so, like, my role is knowing the agencies that we are partnered with, and if a family comes, they sit down and they say that they are not, they don't have certain things in the home, then I could say, here's a suggestion on services, maybe you want to consider a referral to this agency, we'll be glad to help facilitate a referral.
Will you be referring everybody that comes through to one of the different agencies
Not
or services?
necessarily, it just depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Alright, so I think that's what she's
Yeah,
getting
'cause
at.
it
Then you're
says
sort of
100%,
setting
yeah.
yourself up to not
Mm.
meet that
Right.
because
Right.
you're not gonna refer everybody.
Everyone.
Which is why I initially just said consider, but
Consider.
I understand the need for a different
Yeah.
word. But if we're not going to,
Consider for referral. What if we said that?
okay, so we could
Yeah.
put consider for
Yeah.
referral for wraparound services too.
Right.
Mel, what do
Based
you
on,
The individual.
based on individual
Yes.
needs. So I think it's important that we identify that as based on
Yes,
individual
yes.
needs.
And that seems to match with what
Yes.
you're gonna try to do.
Right,
Okay.
based on, yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Thank you.
some type of goal somewhere about transitioning the students back to their traditional school.
Okay.
I don't know.
Do you have transition meetings for students? Maybe something around that 100% of the students will move. I don't, you know what I mean? Through the transitioning meetings designed to facilitate their reentry into the home school. I don't know. I'm just throwing.
Yeah, I don't know. The goal of the program, the final goal of the program, the big
To
goal is to
transition
get
them
them
back
back.
successfully.
To get them these behaviors that they need so they can go back. So it seems that somewhere, and maybe it's, goal number 4, that we write that the students will transition back to their
Can you
school.
do a goal 4? Is it tough
Yes.
limiting you?
I believe it can do.
Say,
both.
and here's the other question. If a student is in this program for X number of amount of time, right? And they haven't met the goals, right? Do they stay longer, or do they have to transition back to the school even though they haven't met their?
The team, we would expect for the team
Yeah.
to change the goal, change the strategies to meet the goal. So if we set a goal for Kiki and she's not successful with the strategies that we're using, do we as the adults in the room need to look at are the strategies, what do we need to do with these strategies to make sure that she's successful? Because we want to help the child succeed.
Right.
Right.
So we don't want to put them in a position where they never see success.
But that's something you're going to do along the way as
Right.
a progress
As a
monitor,
progress
right?
monitor, meetings.
But at the tail end, right, let's say at the tail end, they haven't met that goal, right? Then I guess what I don't know is if there's a time limit, and at the end of that time limit, even if you haven't met the goal, we're required to transition you back, or that's not the case?
That's not the case with PSP.
Right.
Okay.
And we've had not often, but we've had a few situations where they may have gone into the program toward closer to the end of the school year, say maybe March or so, and
Yeah.
we just really felt like they weren't quite there yet, so they would actually begin the following school year. Ideally, we like to try to have them start at the beginning of
Yep,
the new school year.
of course.
But if it just looks like that's not, in the long term, if it looks like it's not going to help the child, then we want to make sure they have that support as long as needed.
At what point do we look for moving to the realm of special education in the
In this
emotionally
process.
disturbed,
Mhm.
because that's behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, this sounds actually like a self-contained program for emotionally disturbed students.
Mhm.
And so I think what makes this different is it's meant to be short-term.
Right, right.
So,
Short term, meaning
Short-
45 days.
No,
what's
we
the-
We
had.
don't define that
Time
on the front.
No,
end.
we don't. And we've had some kids go through maybe 2 to 3 cycles of that 6-week period. I mean, as long as we're seeing progress, sometimes it might not be quite where they need to be, but if we're seeing progress, and then if we aren't seeing progress and there are some concerns that there might be a disability, then the team has that discussion.
Typically, how often is that? I mean, how long before you need to see progress?
Well, ideally, we want to see it every time we come back to the table, every 6 weeks
Which
or
we
so.
schedule every
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
6 weeks, okay.
If the interventions are working, we keep moving forward.
Right,
If the
exactly.
interventions are not, we shift gears.
Exactly.
And we do that with academics too. It's the same sort of
Right.
thing, you know, you want to.
All right, so I just want to make sure I have this documented correctly, and I probably don't have it because I stopped writing.
I know.
I went to
Well,
look to see if because what I didn't want to happen was that we write a goal for, and then we get to the plan to try to submit it, and it only allows for 3 goals. And I couldn't go through without putting information in for the first page, so I couldn't fast forward to see.
Okay.
So we have to ask the question, if we write a goal for, and it does not allow for goal for, which do we want to?
What did you write it for?
Say that
We're
one time.
handwriting one in.
Oh,
We don't
yeah, we're
have-
trying to write one.
I thought it allowed it, but I may be wrong.
It could, yeah, I don't, I
Well,
don't
if it
know.
doesn't,
Did you-
what-
If it doesn't, then what's our
What
plan
did you
B?
write for
Like,
four?
what was the?
Let's see.
100% of students, so this was the measurable part, we didn't talk about the actual goal, but 100% of students will transition successfully,
Sure.
and then we got into the conversation of, so,
Transition to a regular,
Mhm.
to their traditional school environment successfully, or how,
and so the broad goal is that,
So
Yeah,
mine
that's-
said of what the
Yeah.
school's goal is, what the purpose is.
yeah, it's,
The broad goal is why you got the school in the first place.
right, you go back to goal number one and say they acquired the social skills
Right.
necessary to transition back to their regular school, or something like that, is the broad goal, right?
Yeah.
And then the measurable objective is, 100% of the students have, and I don't know if you want to say 100% of the students have transitioned back to their regular program or been channeled into the special education realm. I don't know, does that make more sense? I don't know because I don't have familiar, I haven't seen this program on the ground.
so let's think about one of our kids that was eventually recommended or referred for evaluation. So I guess,
This past year. Yeah.
and I'm trying to remember the process, because we went through so many of these transition
Yeah.
meetings, so.
As I recall, we went through two cycles of,
I was thinking, was it, or maybe I'm.
but it became obvious that we had not, it was not working.
So, yeah, you got
So-
one or two outcomes, right?
Right.
You go
So-
back to the traditional school or
Or
you're.
we're gonna
you're
refer
gonna
for
be
evaluation to
evaluated for
determine.
special ed.
Right.
Because,
Well,
it's not a
Oh,
forever
it's just
program there, right? Huh?
As opposed to
Further
further.
evaluation.
Further evaluation.
Or
Okay.
possible disability, or just further evaluation.
right.
Okay.
Alright. So the goal for, we're gonna talk about them acquiring the skills to transition back to the traditional school environment. And the measurable part of that, 100% of students will transition back to the traditional school or be referred for further evaluation.
So that's goal 4.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what I'll do is, once we make all of the edits, we'll send it back out to everybody.
Yeah.
We heard you.
Right.
We heard you.
All right, any questions? Go to page 3, right?
Yeah.
And we made sure to put page numbers on here. We noticed that when we sent it to you initially, it didn't have page numbers, so we saw in your notes back to us that you had.
We
So
appreciate your
yeah.
feedback.
I have a question about C. It says the student's assignment to PSP will be determined by the student's success in achieving goals. Do you mean if the person's being assigned, they haven't been very successful in
Correct.
achieving these goals,
Mhm.
right?
I think that probably should have read.
Yeah.
Um,
And
mm, it's almost like it should have read the students transition out of
Yes,
or
that's, yeah,
success while in PSP would, students,
because it talks about,
Mhm.
talks about transition.
yes.
B talks about transition, but student not quite making it. The students
And
assign-
C is talking about transition too.
Yeah, the students,
The last sentence says, sign, student, as PSC team will be periodically to review progress and determine if the student is ready to make a successful transition to the home school.
The students' success while in the PSP will be determined by the, I don't want to say achievement, but the goals achieved or
already talked about how students get assigned there.
Yeah, this, I
I
think
think
this
that's
is talking about the
refer
reassignment.
to the application, but I don't remember exactly.
See this process of documentation. Student
So-
assignment.
So really,
Should be reassignment to the home school, I guess.
that's, unless we're talking about how they
Mhm.
get in there, and if we're talking
Yeah,
about how they
yeah,
get in
that's-
there, then we can't have, the student's assignment to PSP will be determined by, I would think that lack of the MTS, I don't know.
Mr. Campbell, you were saying something about the students'
Reassignment
reassignment
to
to
the
the
home
home
school.
school as opposed to the students' assignment to PSP, so is that what you were thinking,
I'm
is that it
thinking
goes?
that's what you're trying to say there.
Yeah,
And so maybe we,
Thinking you're trying to prove that you've been effective and they're gonna be reassigned,
yeah,
according to the question.
That's
How are the
right.
goals and objectives of other supporting activities
Yeah.
based on interventions that have been proven effective in addressing the academic performance of students? Tell you, you certainly want to say what they've shown their progress and MTSS, documented progress. And MTSS and enrich.
okay.
I don't know how you want to say it. That's what you want to say. Show how they've grown and it's been measured. And you said that basically in A, B, and C. Just now said in big C.
I don't see anywhere where it says how the students get in. And maybe the state doesn't
It's,
require that.
that's, yeah, I'm just trying to, because it
Because
asked
I-
about.
yeah. And because my question was, again, based on, to this, email we received from a parent, and I think the whole board received from a parent regarding the Right Choices program. Is there an appeal process for parents if they don't?
There
agree?
is.
Okay.
And we
Have you
talked about-
talked about that, somebody's gotten back to that parent, whatever?
Matter of fact, Terry did, so
Okay.
there is an appeal process.
Okay.
10 days after the letter is received, they have the right to write,
Okay.
to request an appeal in writing.
Yeah, I was looking, I was trying to
Yes.
research that.
So-
That's fine. Okay, good.
So I showed Dr. Rodriguez a copy
Okay,
letter today.
yeah.
The only flip side, the request was after the 10 days.
Oh.
So, but we're gonna be lenient and still have Terry conversation with them.
All right.
So we're just trying to land a time that's going to occur.
So I was gonna say, just offer, with your input on the application process, maybe where it has, the description of the target audience with the student-specific level, we can expand on that paragraph and identify how students, what the application process looks like. So that they're referred from the home school, the district committee reviews the application based on the documentation and Rich, the Power School data, all of the documentation necessary to make a decision about placement. So we can expand that. I just wanted to add that we can expand.
And that,
Should have something on here that
Yeah.
says how to.
We can definitely do that.
and that actually comes before you get into the goals and
Right,
everything else, which
Yes,
makes no
right,
sense.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, you can put it then after the statement of need.
Right,
Yes.
yes,
You
that's
need
what
to
you're
see.
saying.
That would be
Yes.
part of
That's
the
included in the
statement of
statement of
need,
need.
yeah.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we'll add
And
that.
I don't like the term application.
No.
Most students gonna apply for it. Gonna be assigned.
Aside.
So-
Yeah. You know, on very rare occasions.
But it's,
That is
you know,
what
You get
when-
a parent,
I wanna go.
you get a parent who wants to assign their
Right.
kids.
Yeah. Well, that's still an assignment.
You know, I think,
the application is coming from the home school, says I need
Well,
this
yeah,
child
but
on
yeah,
my
that's
school.
Applications come from the home school. You're right.
Yes,
That's that application process.
Yeah.
so we do need to change that, I think.
That's a-
Well,
that's
and I think where this
reassignment.
came from originally
Reassignment, yeah.
was not to say, I don't want, you know, I want this kid out of my school or
Right.
something like that, but has the homeschool done everything
Right.
needed to ensure that interventions have been in place there first?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I get, but application,
One other word.
So we need to check on that.
Yeah.
yeah. Referral?
Yeah. Yeah, I think program referral
Yeah.
is much
Yeah,
better.
it's-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
It's a referral.
yeah, because that's what it is, it's a
Yeah.
referral.
So we will add the information on the referral process for the
Yes,
PSP.
yeah,
Yep.
great.
Okay. Pull forward, no. So I think are we at the bottom of page 3?
Yeah.
Explaining the proposed activities, or did we finish?
Well, we
Yeah.
changed the,
We did
to
change.
reassignment,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. If I was writing it, I wouldn't define the behavior management specialist. Unless you have to define them, saying he's elementary ed person as opposed to high school behavior management. I mean, behavior management specialist, he's who you're looking for to hire, right? But not necessarily, I mean, he's gotta have that skill set right away, so, I mean, I don't know, to say specifically, trained to work with elementary students exhibiting, I mean, all that defines who he is in the first place to me. I mean, you believe it.
Or you just ended
Oh,
after
okay.
behavior management
Management
specialist?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Assuming you can pick the right person for the job.
It's a good assumption.
That referral,
Referral.
yes, I saw that. And maybe if it says
The next-
PSP referral packet, take out more enrollment.
Yes.
Yeah, so referral packet for specific.
And in that next sentence, we'll lowercase transition plan, student, and so all of that will be lowercase, so student transition plan will be developed.
That's a special thing that you got.
No, this one is not.
Do you want to leave the word approximately or say at least every 6 weeks? So hold them accountable. And, but that also means that if after 3 weeks all hell's broken loose, you might want to say, we need another
Right.
team.
Yeah, yeah,
meeting."
another
Yeah.
goal here.
Yeah. Can you give me an idea of what innovative or unique approaches? One sentence in here bothers me a bit because it kind of implies,
Page 5 or 4?
page 4, it kind of implies that all of our teachers aren't like this. It says students will be supported by caring and compassionate staff. I mean, shouldn't all of our teachers be caring and compassionate? You know, that's,
So
Yeah.
is there any specific training that that teacher has that we don't provide for any
that's
other
a good
teacher?
question.
Like response, the first thing that comes to me is
So, the,
restorative practice.
restorative practices, we also get more training on the trauma-informed.
Trauma. So see, that's more, I think, I'm just. throwing
Yeah,
that
and
out.
maybe that's what you would say, that that the teachers have received additional or,
But then this also adds consistency, or continues the consistency with the right choices, because we specifically said caring and compassionate in the right choices.
yeah.
We got away with it. I'll tell you why I remember that is because we had passionate and we had to add. Compassionate, yes. You told us to add that too. Specifically said, pointed it out to us.
I missed that one.
But I see what you're talking about.
I didn't
Yeah,
get what to say,
yes.
it's like, oh my gosh, I'm reading this. All your teachers like this?
Especially.
Especially.
Especially
no.
This is a special.
Maybe, but maybe after that caring and compassionate staff specifically trained for, maybe, or?
Specifically trained to ensure, specifically trained to address confrontational behaviors, conflict. I mean, thinking back to what, conflict resolution, responsive classroom training. All your teachers have CPI training, right? But yeah.
Read it again.
Conflict resolution, power struggle avoidance strategies. To me, those are specific things that we would want these teachers to know.
We had one down in Palm Beach called verbal judo.
Verbal judo.
That's right about, that was in our training yesterday, and,
We had a
promising,
trainer
I mean,
that
the
used to
program, the alternative program, I think it's in Horry County uses the verbal judo.
Yeah.
do. It's pretty good.
Don't pick up the rope. Don't get in the power struggle.
So if we do something about the specifically trained to address, et cetera, do we need the part that says that will work to ensure student engagement and opportunities are available? Do we need that part, or do you want to keep that in?
I don't necessarily understand the continuity there.
I think the thought process at the time was that, the end goal was that they're successful academically and behaviorally when they
Yeah.
transition back, but
Right.
maybe
But now
that's
that we
not.
change the sentence to
Yeah,
talk
I know,
about how
that's
they're
what I was
specifically
thinking.
trained, that changes how that ending, so I think we do need
Right.
to take that out.
Yeah. Because what we're trying to do in this paragraph is delineate
Right.
what makes this different than our regular program, right? Because it's asking for unique and innovative education. So what makes this different? And that's what we're trying to articulate. Do you use an economy at all? Do you use like
Like the token economy.
token economy? Because those token economies, you've got your little sheet that you're earning points for all the time. That's certainly different than a regular classroom. What does it mean by the timeline here? What kind of timeline are they asking?
So
for?
this is actually for secondary programs, so what they talk about is, I think, the schedule.
Yeah, the master schedule of what it looks
They
like.
said that did
But
not apply
that
to.
doesn't
Okay,
apply
yeah,
here.
all right.
So anything you see in bold is the state template.
Right, got it.
And so what
Yep,
we've done is
yep.
just added our.
So that's what you're addressing, attempting to address when you said gradual transition.
So the gradual release to classroom transition?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So once they start to show success in the program, because they initially start full-time in the program. Once they start to show success after learning those skills, then they start to transition out to
Special.
the
Specialized
and
and
related
Yeah,
arts.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right.
page 5.
Let's go back
Okay.
to page 4. How will the program address the education and behavioral needs of the students? Is that positive behavior interventions and support? Is that something?
Yes, sir. So those are strategies that are used to,
That's a program?
yes, sir.
Okay. Then you probably have,
You okay?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Utilize that time. Fight the rules, things
So, to me, on the top of page 5, students participating in PSP and in needed counseling services will be able, but I would say, I wouldn't imagine somebody who's placed there is not in need of counseling services, so that they will all receive counseling services.
Okay.
I mean, who's gonna come in, is it even if it's, okay, I don't know what social skills training program we use, but is the counselor gonna come in and teach the social skills class? Is the teacher gonna teach the social skills class? Like, I would think that every one of these students should touch a counselor at least on a weekly basis, if not more, because again, they've got these behaviors that need to be addressed. And it says social or emotional needs, so,
How many counselors do we have staff?
There's, the one for the school.
One assigned at each elementary school.
Yeah. And so whenever we do the PSP, team
Well-
meetings,
What would be the caseload?
it's.
the whole school.
Yeah.
The whole school.
Yeah.
The whole
That's
school.
what I was worried about.
Yeah.
So they don't have, the
They don't
only
have a
staff that we have
specific-
specifically for the PSP program would be the teacher and the behavior management specialist.
Okay.
So those children that would be placed at a maximum of 8 children in that PSP program at those 3 schools
Yeah.
would be in addition to everyone else that's in that school building.
So the social skills training that those kids will get will be provided by the teacher
Teacher and behavior
and
management
behavior
specialist.
management. The counseling that those students need, for those will be provided by the counselor, but that's a pretty taxing.
Just from previous
Yeah, 'cause that's what my
situations,
experience.
we
Yeah.
have, as part of the team, the homeschool will bring an administrator, usually the MTSS coordinator and/or the school counselor. So, and oftentimes the homeschool school counselor interacts with the counselors there, just, if there's anything specific. And we try to do it based on the specific needs. And if there is something that needs to be worked on, they try to work through that together. So that's kind of why it's, it trying to, the primary focus will be from the teacher and the behavior management specialist as far as the social skills go.
How many kids at each site in PSP?
We've had up to 8, we have up to 8, and, it's about, last year, no, the year before last, we had bigger numbers. At the end of last year, we had several at Well Branch. We only had like 3 at Red Cedar, so it varies,
So it says max 8.
Max 8,
Yes.
yes.
To be safe, you can say the whole team will provide a counselor.
Like the homeschool as well as.
No,
the-
yeah, school counselor, but the whole,
With the-
what you call it, MTS?
Or
Oh,
the
yes,
whole
yes,
team.
yes.
The whole team.
The whole-
Will arrange or set up or.
Yeah, it talks about the kids that need more intensive counseling.
That's the next line, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next sentence.
So those are the ones that we
Those are
want
ones
to
that would be
refer
found
Right,
out.
that you want to refer out.
Yeah, they're
Um,
found out. But the other part of it
Because our
is
folks are not
really
trying
the
to provide
program.
that therapeutic
Right,
training
got it.
that some of these
Got it.
students.
Yeah. The therapeutic counseling is what gets,
Quick question. For those therapeutic counselors, it would be cheaper for us to possibly study. Are those services costing us anything? Or?
They don't cost the district. So the services, the agencies that provide these services, they use the parent's insurance or the child's insurance to bill the insurance.
So what if that child didn't have one? Would they still?
Some of them do sliding scales
Yes,
for
ma'am.
their services. Coastal Empire Community Mental Health has a sliding scale that can go down to $0. And that's based on the parent's income and the family's need. But we do have, and I'm just going to be transparent about this, we do have some children whose parents don't see it as a necessity to seek out those services.
Right.
No matter how much we recommend, how we talk about the benefit.
Either they don't see it or they see it as a stigma or
Right.
something like that. So
Right.
I don't want it, you know.
My child is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
maybe getting close to
That's
something
hard.
that's a
Something
little
that's,
touchy.
that they don't want. Yes, got it.
A lot
That was-
behind that.
Right now, I was just asking because I wouldn't mind possibly maybe we can have some of those on staff. But I mean, if those services are provided by then with those not bad services, I guess we'll be able to keep that in place. But I was just something.
And when they are involved, they actually come to the meetings as well too, so that we have their feet, so that that's the homeschool connection. All right.
Yes, I mean, it's clear what you mean, but how you wrote it, I don't, we're gonna have a transition meeting. And then you're coming up with the plan. For the student. So isn't the meeting a part of the plan, or am I?
So the plan is created during the meeting.
Right.
Okay. Oh, plan is
Is that
created.
yes,
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 sir.
while we're
Yes,
talking.
sir.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Creating the
the
plan.
meeting isn't a part of the plan.
Correct.
I mean, okay.
So
Alright.
at this, if this were the child's transition meeting, we would talk about the strategies that need to be employed when they
Both
return.
schools are there.
So we would reserve.
I
Read with the
understand,
plan.
yeah. You don't have a meeting, if you don't have a meeting, you're never gonna get the plan. Yeah, okay.
Earl, did you have something?
No.
Okay. That's all right. You
Also,
don't-
I was at something recently, and a young lady from I guess she's she's one of these consuls that we were talking about. I guess she kind of works with the sheriff office. I forgot her name is. I had her card too. Basically, she was saying that I guess when something like
Are you talking about CCRI?
Yeah.
So that's the partnership between the Sheriff's Department and Coastal Empire Community Mental Health. Anytime there's a crisis in the community,
Right.
they can be called and they respond to that crisis. They assess the person, make a determination as to whether they're mentally fit to
Right.
be released at the time, whether they need to take them to the hospital, what the services are needed at that time. But that is available to the entire community.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be someone who is a patient of Coastal Empire.
Right.
It's just anyone in the community. If I were having a mental health crisis, you could call as a concerned community member, or my family could call, and they would come to where the crisis is.
Right.
When a crisis like that might occur, right? Let's say it's a Sunday, okay? right? And, but they're not, you know, I guess it's assessed, there's not necessarily a need or doesn't rise to a level where it needs, something more significant, right? Do they notify the system in any way that that has happened, or something has occurred, so that when they roll into school on Monday,
They know.
we're prepared, or they're prepared, or that's?
We have not had that experience in the past, but CCRI is new to the community. We just had it this past year. But I don't mind reaching out to Billy Joe, who coordinates CCRI, to just find out. But CCRI is a collaborative between Coastal Empire and the Sheriff's Department. We have an MOU with Coastal. We don't have anything with the Sheriff's Department as far as sharing information, so
I
I'll
wonder
have
if
to
it's
find out.
medical things that related, they may not be able to share with us, but just, I was just thinking that, you know, they're gonna roll into our school on
Oh,
Monday
that would be
morning.
definitely good to
And
know.
they may not
It
be
would, yeah.
in the best state of mind, you know, they might need some support, and some help, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it?
And that's what I was that's what I was
Community
thinking.
crisis
That's
response
what I was kind of
initiative.
getting at, and along
Thank
with
you.
that, maybe if we could have some partnership with them, because she told me that she was interested in, and that they were interested in kind of coming to the schools and working with us with different things. I told her, I said that would be an awesome, I guess, great
Can you find
idea.
out which agency that is? Because what you're describing is a little bit different. I thought initially you were talking about CCRI, but if this
I'm
person,
sure- I'm
so they're
sure.
already in our schools. When we had, we just lost a student to suicide at McCracken. They met me there with a team of 7 people for
Right, but when she made it, I guess it seemed like, it maybe it's something where they have to be called out. But I guess when we have kids that who reaches maybe that's questionable, I think they like to work more with the hands-on before they get to that level. Before they get to that, they got to be called out. When you can see it, a kind of a pattern of behavior within a child or something possibly is questionable, then they can come out and kind of work with that child, work with that child, and talk to that child, and see where that child is at in the
I'm
middle
trying to
stages.
understand, I'm trying to, in my head, process, because I'm thinking about the agencies that are available in the community that we have partnerships with. So we've got, like, Right Direction Family Services provides the rehabilitative behavioral health support.
Right.
And we have other agencies in the community that provide that services, but some of them are not. So like Baker Consulting does not have an MOU with the district to provide school-based services. So I'm wondering, is this somebody trying to seek out to be able to offer school-based services?
I believe that is what that
Yeah.
is.
So if you could check the card, and then I could let you know
If they
what
have an
historically,
MOU or not.
exactly.
It sounds like they're more interventionists than, after the fact.
Sure.
They're trying
In front
to
of
curb it, the front end, really try.
Right. No. She's exactly what she just said. When the sheriff office called out, it's her that come out. So yeah, but she sometimes some of these kids basically she said it's like a balloon. You blow it and you blow it and you blow it. Sometimes you can identify when they're about to pop. A steady waiting until they pop. Once you call them now, and that way they can
Right.
see.
That's
they
it.
can-
Hand it off.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I did, and I guess this will help if we have another situation where somebody says that, what I did, like with the new staff this past week, was help them to understand some of the behaviors that they see and the agencies that they can refer to, or that they can communicate with the counselor or social worker to be able to refer to, because sometimes they don't know what's available in the schools or outside of the schools. So I don't know if that's something that we need to try to educate more staff on, because I did get a good bit of feedback that this was great. I'm glad to know we have all of these resources. So, but I'm curious to know what agency that is.
I will find it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, sorry, I don't know where we left off.
Page 5.
Page 5, okay.
Yeah.
I think we were,
Yeah.
Second paragraph.
Change this to the.
Yes, I already circled that.
Do we have staff that helps parents apply for Medicaid?
Yes, school social workers do
Yeah,
that.
okay.
And then in the pink house, don't they also help families apply for certain services?
So they all, in addition to just applying for services, they also refer to the universal staffing team for families with younger children, and then we at the school district for the older children, K through 12, we refer to the Collaborative Organization of Services, which is COSI, and that's that multi-agency team that meets with families regularly, develop a treatment plan, help seek out services, identify things that can be supported to the family.
Okay, and down to parent employment support.
Yes, sir.
Seems to be adequate, except that you never involved in a placement, or I see it.
Oh, they're definitely involved. Well, so in the application referral,
I know.
so we seek parent input then, and then they're a part of every meeting. So they are a part of the team that sits each time that we meet.
We have a transition meeting into.
Yes, sir.
And then a transition meeting out, and they're a part of that.
That's
Yes,
part of that.
and every meeting every interval meeting that we
Just
have.
want you to put it in there.
Okay.
I know that you
Or,
got
what-
it.
yeah, or that was also probably gonna be included in where we talked about the referral, about how students get in, right?
But that's,
Got that too.
you know, despite how what you put, that might be the only two that they get check off on. You know, they you call them and they're taking them out. And they had
I'm
it.
talking about this application.
Okay.
That's those other. communities,
Yeah,
including
all of
Yes,
that.
sir.
the police department, right? I would call them.
And that truancy part doesn't apply to us, because you can't have truancy on students younger than age 12.
Right.
Okay,
I was just wanting everybody to
Yeah,
have that
got it.
clarification.
so all those NAs mean.
NAs mean
yes.
Not applicable.
Yes, sir.
So we can't hold their parents accountable for truancy in this state?
When they turn 12.
Just when they turn 12, and not when they're younger.
Right, so what we can do, and what we have done, is we can refer to DSS
Yeah.
for educational neglect.
Yeah.
And you know, the director of DSS, I called her yesterday about a situation where a family member contacted Jim Foster to say that my sisters are supposed to be homeschooled, but they're not receiving educational services. That wasn't the school district, but I did call her, and she said, call me back today, hey, we got an intake on that family, and we're investigating now. So it's good to have those relationships where you can pick up the phone and call somebody to say, hey, this is what's going on with this situation.
Florida, truancy laws up to 16 years old.
Yeah.
And
After 16, they.
Right? But there wasn't any teeth around it,
Yeah.
right? So the law was there, but nobody touched it. Nobody touched it. And, I mean, at the school, we would send letters and that sort of thing and work with it, but legally, law enforcement, nobody touched it.
Elementary kids, South Carolina, elementary, so expected to go to school. That's just.
Yeah, but if they don't,
Yeah.
I mean, I tell them.
I understand. That's a change that's coming to South Carolina
'Cause
that they've not been accustomed to.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a.
Parents provided doctor's excuse. when they
Yeah.
just out. I required it. Boy, that did not make them happy. But I'm like, your kid is not sick.
I wish it was that easy now.
Yeah. Very good.
That is an uphill battle.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
You're going to Whale Branch, I'll be there.
Branch, it's
Head out there.
65, right?
Yeah.
So we got
Yeah, we're
five,
right.
six,
Very
seven.
good.
Evaluation. Same standard, right?
And then when we talk about the budget, this is an estimated number based on the starting salary.
Question that I think Fisher had on this.
Yes, sir. So initially, we had the information that was from the Right Choices program, but because we haven't identified or hired, we can't do that until we submit this plan. We can't hire the additional staff. Louis Ackerman from Finance gave me the base salary for the teachers. Oh, you know what, I just realized that we're missing the BMS salary on this. So that's about, so the he said the salary, I'll tell you what it is.
And does the state give us additional money for these programs?
No.
So the average behavior management is going to be around 36,000 plus 14,400 in benefits. And the teacher will run about 52,000 with 20,800 in benefits.
Okay,
So overall, we're looking at about.
that's why you're looking at that number for
Yeah.
teachers only, yeah.
Yeah, so I need to go back and I'll be sure to add the BMS salary and
Yeah.
benefits there.
Yeah. It was much more, astronomical, the one you sent out earlier, right?
900 or something,
Yeah.
yeah.
As in salaries for teachers, as in for the these are for this program. Well, how much do teachers make for the regular school program?
Same.
For the same.
This is the same,
Same.
yeah, they're giving you the
Now I have a problem with that because this. I'm serious.
Hey,
These teachers who work in this school here really should get hazardous pay because these kids are different and they have different needs. So therefore, these teachers here they need to get paid more because their workload is totally different from other school teachers, regular school teachers. I mean, I'm telling you from experience and knowledge of being in there on first hand. So I think that the teachers who take upon and say that I will go over there and who are not fortunate to be over there, they need to be rewarded. I mean, because when you come, you gotta be prayed up every day.
And I would argue the same could be said for special ed teachers.
And then math.
With, I mean, just because we have special ed teachers that are changing
Yeah,
these
you're right.
diapers
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
you're right. You're right.
I know,
And actually, I
I
had,
agree.
and you're right because I actually had a teacher's assistant who stopped me in the store, and she quit our school district last year because she was told that she had to change Pampers and give her kids some medicine through the tube, and she wasn't comfortable, and so she left the district. So yeah, you're right. And she said she wouldn't get paid enough for that.
52,000 is not your minimum
He
teacher.
said this is the
That's not
average.
entry level.
Yeah.
That's not average. So
Yeah.
no matter who we getting, how many
Right.
years they've
And their
been in,
experience.
rather,
Yeah.
what they're
Yeah.
getting, but you know, it's a selected group of people, but it's also a talented group of people that's talented in that arena. Yeah, every teacher should be paid more.
Mel, look at that.
Yeah.
Mr. Campbell, working in that arena is something totally different.
Yeah. You know, I worked in sewer for a while, and, you know, it's got its benefits, it's got its backdrop. Got less people to work with,
Right.
2, 3 people. Once you learn the personality, and that's a skill set.
Yeah.
It ain't as hard as dealing with 25. You know, so, you know, there's an argument for that across the board.
Yeah, cause I take that 25 versus taking them 15
2 or 3.
them 15 who would slash your throat if you say something wrong. And you can say something one word wrong and they,
This is just 2 through 5 that
Two through
we're,
five.
that this is talking about.
They just throw chairs.
Yeah.
Is it,
They just get
is
a
it
lot of
age?
No,
Or is it the PS? Or is it
Yeah, the
PSP
PS.
program?
grade two.
Yeah, they not there
It's
yet.
PSP. Okay.
It's the big boys coming
We're
in.
trying to correct it so we don't have that.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right, and that's why it takes the,
It takes,
Yeah, it does. It
right
takes
information.
Skill set.
Yeah, it takes
Yeah,
that
that
skill
correct
set.
skill set.
So that when the kid does that,
Everybody
you say,
can't
oh,
teach it. Can't be it.
why would you do that?
Well, I think we got something that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
thank you, we will make the edits
And send it back out.
and send it back out to you all. And I'm hoping, I'm probably gonna just stay or take this home with me and try to get it done tonight, so I can get it back out to you all, so we can get it
Give it up
submitted to the state. Because we got,
Alice said,
yeah, we can't hire these people until we get this submitted.
Right.
You want to submit it
What's-
tomorrow, Kiki?
Yeah.
What's the turnaround from the state once you submit it, do you think?
She usually, she got back to us,
Within a couple of days, she'll
Okay,
respond.
good.
and
She's pretty,
at that time, she had multiple plans coming in, this is the only one, she opened the portal back up for
for
us.
us to submit.
So, it may be just depending on her travel.
Building those relationships.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Everybody want a motion on that?
Oh, I move we adjourn.
Second.